All right, so we are back with Sin9, who's going to be showing us Galaxian Trade Empire. Now, Sin9, you're muted right now. You might need to unmute there. But I'm super excited to hear about this project. I just saw it recently on the Rust Gamedev Discord. So, Sin9, I'll hand it over to you to chat about it.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Yep. So I've been trying to make a devlog for this game over the last month, I guess this was a game jam game started at the beginning of October, and I tried to kind of live devlog the entire creation of it in the actual Rust Game Dev server. So it was around like 200 or so posts inside this channel if you want to check it out. Let's see, kind of a little background about me. I work in modeling and simulation. I'm going to school for modeling and simulation as well. I also, like LM, had finals yesterday. So this is, I'm finally getting to start some of my vacation now. I've been working, making games since like the late 90s or so. I started in QBasic and then went over to FreeBasic and then C++ and now Rust. On my webpage, I have kind of like pictures of like all the stuff I've been working on over time. A lot of them are game jam games. These I think these first 8, this Flow one and Scroll Sunday one. And I like, I'm working on my own minigame framework to help make these kind of games. I'm part of a community that does game jams. It did a lot of the Ludum Dare kind of those not competitions but challenges, right? And so I really enjoy doing those type of events and slowly making my framework better over time. And so this month I decided to make Galaxion Trade Empire, and this game is inspired by a BBS game back in the 90s. So it's like a text-based game where you go and kind of explore a universe or a galaxy. You trade with at different stations. You can battle other players. You can have planets and things like that. So I wanted to make something similar to that. It is on my GitHub. It is currently, you can play the entire game. This is a public alpha, so trying to get feedback. Want to extend it more, make it more interesting. It takes me a few hours to beat it, and I'm trying to kind of improve the later game to make it more interesting. Also on my GitHub, there's a bunch of my other mini games if you want to try those out as well. These are all created. Basically, there's an abstraction layer to a game framework that I made, Rust minigame framework, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But first, I'd like to go in and just show you what the game looks like with this startup here. Give it a second. All right, so there's no title screen in it quite yet. It just kind of dumps you into the galaxy view. The game is basically made up of like 4 smaller games. One for galaxy exploration, one for planet development. There's basically a trading aspect to it to buy and sell at different ports. And then there's also a combat aspect of it. So here, just starting out, this is my freighter, and I can move my freighter around, go to these different kind of like jump points around the galaxy, go to my home planet and land. And now I'm just in this like planet view where I can do things like controlling the types of labor and work that the population does. So if you have more farmers, you can make more food. If you have more laborers, you can manufacture goods. More scientists, you can do more research, or you can do research things faster. So if I have a bunch of scientists, I could go into research and like pick something I want to research, like agriculture, because I want to be able to make more food, and then start that. And it says it's going to take around 12 years to finish, right? I can also change things I want to manufacture. This gives like an outlook for over the next 100 years, what kind of, how much you're going to manufacture. This is a lush planet, so I want more biologics. In this game, the more machinery you have, the more like fighter ships you can build. So add like some more fighters or some more machinery in there, and then ultimately that turns into resource production, which I can take off the planet. Say I'm just going to grab all these resources, ice, fuel, biologics, because I want to go take those and trade them. If there's fighters that have been manufactured, I could take them off the planet here. But basically, I'm just going to lift off, and I'm going to go over to this station over here. And then this starts the basically the third sub game. So you have the exploration, you have your planet building and improving your planets, and then going into the stations to do trading, right? There's a station view. I can do things like see what they're buying and selling. I can spend money. I could sell goods. If I have planets, this TerraLink will show me my planets, and I could go navigate to them. If I've seen a bunch of different markets that are available to me, I can see what the prices are in those markets, so I can optimize what I'm selling and buying at different places to make more efficient money. And then, so right now you can see I only have like a little bit of the universe or the galaxy explored. So I'm just going to go in here and download some nav maps, right? And then if I come back out here, I can see that I'm starting to see more of the galaxy, right? So I'll just do this a few times. And now I can see just different places I could go to. I could go to this planet over here. And then if I wanted to, I could attack this planet to try and take control of it, or get tribute, right? So like kind of get money or resources from the planet. So if I just go in and say attack, right now it's pretty early in the game. So I have this house that I'm going up against has 52 fighter spacecraft, and I only have 12. So the likelihood of winning this battle is incredibly low. But basically, I could navigate, and then the cells here basically show you where you can go to, and once I get close enough, then I'll be able to actually attack. There's some hotkeys in here to make this a little bit faster. This guy right here is probably going to die here immediately because somebody's going to attack him, and there he goes. Right. So basically, this is kind of how combat goes. You want to be strategic about your unit placement, and then if you can get around and land an attack on the freighter, you will immediately cause them to surrender. Right. But you could also try and demand surrender, and of course they're like, no, that's not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer tribute, and they accept it. So I want to get out of that battle. I had to give up some resources to do that, but that's okay. And just give you another look at going into the station. Now that I've seen more of the galaxy, I'm starting to see more things in the market network where I can kind of buy and sell. So maybe I want to get some ice here and sell it here because there's a big price differential, right? And so that may be an opportunity to make a bunch of money. And then if I wanted to do that, I could click on here, and it'll basically auto navigate me to that station. And then I could go and buy, say, or they're selling ice. And so say I want to just buy a whole bunch of ice, right? And then go back to somebody who is buying ice, 49. The prices have gone up because there's inflation. As you go around the galaxy, your year ticker starts to tick up. And then once you get up above a certain threshold, the other houses start to attack each other, right? And so the balance in the galaxy starts to change. And right now they won't attack you. You have to initiate the attack, but in the future, I hope to do things like getting ambushed while you're in transit, or having other houses attack your planets, and you have to defend them. You can see things like what's in your cargo holds. You can buy fighters at different stations. Let's see. I think that's about, let's see, status here. Yep. So that's basically it. Once you get into the game, the galaxy gets pretty large. There's a lot of places. There's volcanic planets, desert planets, ocean planets, the green lush planets. They have different types of resources that they're better at producing. Some are more strategic than others. And then there's different types. There's like these Federation stations that have different kinds of like the different prices in things like fighters or different deals. And so there's only a few of them. In the future, I hope to be able to like upgrade your freighter so you could carry more resources or carry more fighters, things like that. Potentially have other freighters that you have. And would be really fantastic is to kind of do an online multiplayer thing with this. But yeah, that's about it. The GitHub has an explanation of what the menus are, what the gameplay elements are, some of the hotkeys. All the code is here if you want to check it out. I also have some like little architecture pictures, kind of shows how it's all spread out. Basically, it's really just 5 files, one for each sub game, right? And then one that's has like the data structures and general utilities. And this is kind of how it plugs into MGFW minigame framework. There's only a few crates in this entire project. Almost all of the code is mine. I did all the ECS, the game. I did the framework. I do use Gluten for input and windowing. It goes out to OpenGL. And then GilRS is in the framework for gamepad stuff. This game only uses keyboard and mouse, though. Basically pushes events up to the game. The game has an update tick that the framework controls, and then it mutates the world. And then that's basically just follows that loop. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I just want to mention I had like there's like a game I was playing back in like the early 2000s on the Palm Pilot called so I think this one was based off of Trade Wars, right? The one I was playing
Yeah.
was Space Trader, and so it was not exactly the same, but it did remind me a lot of like some similar ideas. Where one of the biggest things you could do with games back then was have a very cool economy system where you'd go between systems and trade resources, and so I definitely love seeing it. It's very reminiscent of that. One thing I was kind of curious about the tech stack here is you mentioned that so you've like sort of built out this engine that does the like the whole loop. Did you build out the UI system as well?
Yeah, I did. So actually in I think it was August or September. I'm going to go over to Discord real quick. I built the UI. I've been working on a little RPG project at the same time. This kind of it's kind of reminiscent of like Final Fantasy One time period, and I started working on this UI for it as to create an editor, right? And then basically October came around and it was like game jam time, and so I was like, hey, what can I do that leverages this UI so I can get some mileage out of it, right? And then so I decided to make this game. So basically the UI, I actually really like this pattern. Is something that I did that I don't think I've seen somebody do. Somebody's undoubtedly done it before, but basically it's a like a procedural grid splitting engine. So you have a like a rectangle, and you can split it horizontally or vertically, and you can split it once or multiple times or at different ratios, and then that returns a structure of more rectangles that you can further split, right? And then as you split them, you can inject UI elements like buttons or text or scroll areas or things like that. And it basically makes it so that you can procedurally hack up your two-dimensional space to make a UI. And then you give, I can actually pull up kind of a, like an example of that. So let's make this big if I can. So like I have a big grid that's a full screen, and I just split it into 3 columns horizontally, and then I split that vertically. And then I'm basically going through my ECS to add UI elements into those splits, right? And what's really cool about this is that I can change these ratios and everything just auto adapts, right? So if I want to add in more columns, or it's kind of actually, it's kind of reminiscent of like CSS grids, right? So if you want to be able to take a web page and just like dynamically split, but you're not really sure what you want, and you need to get in and just kind of get things set up and feel it out. It's really good for prototyping and exploring how you want your UI to work and feel. And then basically you give it a callback which can have data or just be an enumeration. And then it's going to later on in your update loop, you just poll to see what callbacks have been registered, right? And then you just act on those events. So here's kind of an entire menu. I take the screen, chop it up into splits, and then I add UI components to it and assign them callbacks. And then whenever that gets interacted with, it's just going to create the event, right? So it was a way to like pretty rapidly create complex interfaces like this editor in the span of like an afternoon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And so looking at just like this image here, it does have like that feeling of a UI from like the mid 2000s. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I can't think of which ones, but
I
like I
love
look at that. I'm
Yeah, I
thinking,
love double pixels, or like really chunky pixels are like something that and I also like had the problem with the tiles with the black lines, and kind of solved that with like a render buffer. But that plagued me for a while as well. It's like there's this hairline in there, and I
mhm.
really just want my chunky pixels. And then and I've gotten that comment in the past. It's like, hey, it's kind of like pixelated. I'm like, that's what I like. So
Mhm.
especially low palettes. Like these palettes only have like 8 colors or 16 colors or something like that. So that's my what I enjoy from the 90s.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. And actually, kind of speaking of, so I did not actually do my research. I did not go and look at your website. It's so cool that you have like such a large amount of sort of like game jams and projects that you've worked on.
Yeah.
And so I definitely have to check this out. But what I'm curious about from here is if your experience of like working on these mini games and working on these systems for quite a long time. So with all that experience, like how do you sort of feel the progression in your ability to either like work on games, or how do you find like Rust in comparison to some of these other like languages that allowed you to do stuff earlier in like the 2000s?
That's a great question. My favorite part of the Rust community is like, well, so I like Rust because I like the challenges of the language itself. I really am a big fan of demo scene, and I've got like some demo scene stuff down here where you're trying to push the envelope of what you can do with like a lot of this stuff is like quick basic, right? This is like really or like early free basic stuff. Where you're trying to push the envelope of what you can do. And I like Rust because it adds new levels of challenges with the way you write your code. So it's kind of like a new meta challenge that's not like hardware limits. But then I also really like the Rust community itself because it makes me it brings back memories that I have of like the early 2000s of web rings and trying to these like really small micro programming communities on the internet, before there was Reddit and things like that. And I feel like
Hmm.
the Rust community kind of captures that same thing. It's a great challenge making a game in Rust. It's especially if there's so many game systems that you have to create, and if you don't want to use a crate to do it, you're on the hook to do all of it yourself.
Hmm.
And so you really get an understanding of what it's like to build those systems, right? So, somebody was making a
Hmm.
comment recently about uh, if you want to make a 3D engine from scratch, it's deceptively simple, right? You once you get into it, you realize that it's incredibly difficult. Like I have this game
Hmm.
prompt critical here. 3D action game was written in BASIC, right? And it was
Hmm.
written in BASIC like almost 20 years ago, right? and
Hmm.
and it's there's so much that you have to do, and so I like that. I don't use hardly any crates. I really just use crates for the stuff that I don't want to write myself.
Hmm.
But I like to write all of it myself to really appreciate the what goes into the tech in order to build it. Like I definitely don't think that my way of writing a system is the best way, it's or even a typical good way. A lot of times by naive implementation is the way to go, and I was just like having fun doing it. And
Hmm.
I basically what I started is if I just go over to the GitHub, I kind of just started with a tic-tac-toe game. And I was saying, okay, what is the bare minimum tech that I need in order to make a tic-tac-toe game? Right. And it's just like being able to have a billboard, right? Textures, and be able to play or have some sort of pixel font in there or something. And then so I started with tic-tac-toe and just slowly built up the complexity of making these games. And I would try and make the entire game in a weekend, right? Or 1 week, like 1 week or less. And the goal there was, what are the critical systems I need in order to create this in less than a week? And where are the friction points that I need to go and improve so that I can, do the uh, uh, leverage the code, right? So basically, so the framework will support being able to explore an idea really rapidly, and get lots of mileage on it, so that I can work out the kinks. It's not really designed for other people to use,
Mhm.
but if people want to use it, that's fantastic, and I'll happily answer questions. If there's anything in there you want to take, that's all good by me. I'm just having fun.
For sure. And also just a reminder to everybody, after the meetup, we'll be heading over to the Rust Game Dev Discord. We'll be in a voice chat there for anybody who would like to join and just hang out. Now, one point that I want to add on to what you've mentioned here, Sin9, is sort of with these friction points. I've done this approach before when I was like using the Godot engine, and I'm like, I'd really like to just try putting together like a lot of different mechanics that I find interesting, and so I'd make a demo with each mechanic and kind of put it together. And then in my mind, it was like a lot more of a granular way to, as you said, get over these friction points. And so now that you've worked through some like basic games, you try to condense them into a weekend or a week. With the game, so with Galaxion, what are the items now that you're like, oh, these are the largest pain points, or not really pain points, but friction points, now that you have a larger system, a larger game all put together?
Yeah, that's a good question. So now it's mostly like from an engine standpoint. I'm uh, using this UI for the first time, and so there are definitely kinks with the UI that I have to go and fix. So everything, it works, but it works because I've intentionally kind of removed certain aspects of the interaction to simplify it, to take out ones that still have problems. So the UI, like the UI library that's built into the framework, definitely needs some work, to make it more general use. From like a game engine aspect, um, I would say there's not a whole lot. It does things like the animations, billboards. It has physics in there, but I don't in this game. I don't really use the physics. Um, uh, yeah, it's mostly, this game is really more about exercising the UI, and from like a growing the game standpoint, the wanting to make it more interesting from a gameplay aspect. The one thing that the framework does not have that I really would like to expand on is the ability to do web GPU, right? Or have the games be playable on web. I did put out a request for, if somebody wants to go do that and integrate that in the engine, put it in the collaboration jobs. I give somebody $100 to do that if they wanted to. Ultimately, I'll get to it eventually. But I would say that's like one of the weak areas. That's like a real desire that I have, that make it so that somebody doesn't have to download the game. If they want to try it, they can, or if I have a demo, to be able to play it in the browser. But yeah, the engine itself is, it can do a lot of different stuff.
Hmm.
It's like we got a racing game, kind of like a mode 7 kind of space shooter, mouse interaction stuff, puzzle games, all that sort of fun stuff.
And I saw recently, well, I guess just this week, you posted Galaxion on GitHub. And so was that just Galaxion, or was that also the engine?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
everything. Everything is, it's a good question. So if you go into source, basically it's split into two folders. All the engine stuff is in MGFW minigame framework, and then all the game stuff is just in the game folder. And basically you've got your kind of your loop, some enums. This is the state does most of the heavy lifting with data structures and running the background simulation. And then UI is all the menus and all the menu interactions. Pretty pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
These are big files.
Okay, I was
but
gonna say, I was looking at this and I'm like, did you actually implement a game in like 10 files? But
yeah,
like,
absolutely, absolutely.
okay.
There's this game, Griffin Legend, that I did 14 years ago. I think it's been ported to like 3DX or 3DS.
Oh, really?
It's been ported
Okay.
to like the Scum engine. Like somebody like a community went and ported this to tons of little handhelds and stuff.
Oh, that's
But
so cool.
it's also it's one file, and so they had to go through and decrypt this giant single file, and it was done in basic, right? And so that this one
Mm,
file of basic code, and then and port this to all these different like handhelds and things, which you can go find, but it's not quite that bad. But yeah, for a game that the entire game was made in like 93 hours, and then
wow.
about 20 hours of once the jam was over, it had about 20 more hours added to it. But yeah, it's basically, I'll clean it up and reorganize it later. But I really
Yeah, no, it's quite
push through.
impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's cool seeing the game, but I also love hearing the history behind all of the projects that you've done and sort of where you've gone to get here. So
thanks.
this is super cool. I'll keep an eye on it. So I didn't actually think of using the. I mean, I haven't really checked out the products channel too much, but hearing that there's like a full devlog of content in there is super cool. And so I'll
Yeah,
be sure to go and do a read through. And I'm sure that a lot of other people also have sort of a similar
yeah.
thing going on.
And it really, I tried to document kind of my thinking process as well as like where things were getting stuck, what I was exploring with. I was using a bunch of open AI tools to generate avatars and backgrounds. Of course,
Mm.
I'll replace that with human made art in the future if I decide to sell it, but it's a massive time saver for a game jam game. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'm moving most of this over to my webpage, but you guys got the whole thing
The
right here in the
unfiltered,
house.
yeah.
Yep. So
Awesome. All right.
cool.
Well, Sin9, thank you so much for showing this off. This was a ton of fun. I hope to catch you in a future month to either see some updates on Galaxion or see what your next mini game is.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Perfect. We'll be back in just a second with the final presentation.